Good morning and welcome to day 19 of Bible in a Year. We are going through the Bible in 365 days, starting from Genesis and going all the way to Revelation. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going through the period of the patriarchs. We're going to be doing the adventure timeline laid out by Jeff Cavins. We'll be following in the New International Version. My name is Pastor Jay Lutz. Today we're going to be exploring Genesis chapter 37. We're going to be talking about Joseph, technicolored dream coat Joseph, son of Jacob and Rachel, or Israel, as we found last week. He was renamed, and then we hear the first of his two dreams, and then his brothers plot to kill him. Dun, dun, dun. An eventual sale to the Midianites, and the Midianites to Potiphar in Egypt, who is the captain of Pharaoh's guard. Then we'll move on to Job 27 to 28, and Job continues a very long discord towards Bildad the Shuhite, who responds to him a couple chapters earlier. And then lastly, we'll be reading Proverbs chapter 3, 25 to 27, as Solomon tells his son to trust in God and do good when it is in his power to do so. So we'll be exploring that. So let's get into it. Genesis chapter 37. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, and his father's wives. And he brought their father a bad report about them. He brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age. And he made a richly ornamented robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father, as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I'm going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to him, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me." Then he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering around in the field and asked him, "What are you looking for?" He replied, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they're grazing their flocks?" "They have moved on from here," the man answered. "I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him." Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the desert, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robes, the rich ornament robes he was wearing. And they took him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty. There was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. So when the Midianites merchants came by, his brother pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?" Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornamented robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it's your son's robe." He recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, in mourning will I go down to the grave to my son." So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. Our next reading comes from Job chapter 27 to 28. And Job continued his discourse. "As surely as God lives, who has denied me justice, the Almighty who has made me taste bitterness of soul. As long as I have life within me, the breath of God in my nostrils, my lips will not speak wickedness, and my tongue will utter no deceit. I will never admit you are in the right. Till I die, I will not deny my integrity. I will maintain my righteousness and never let go of it. My conscience will not reproach me as long as I live. May my enemies be like the wicked, my adversaries like the unjust. For what hope has the godless when he is cut off, when God takes away his life? Does God listen to his cry? When distress comes upon him, will he find delight in the Almighty? Will he call upon God at all times? I will teach you about the power of God. The ways of the Almighty I will not conceal. You have all seen this yourselves. Why then this meaningless talk? Here is the fate God allots to the wicked, the heritage a ruthless man receives from the Almighty. However many his children, their fate is the sword. His offspring will never have enough to eat. The plague will bury those who survive him, and their widows will not weep for them. Though he heaps up silver like dust, and clothes like piles of clay, what he lays up the righteous will wear, and the innocent will divide his silver. The house he builds is like a moth's cocoon, like a hut made by a watchman. He lies down wealthy, but will do so no more. When he opens his eyes, all is gone. Terrors overtake him like a flood. A tempest snatches him away in the night. The east wind carries him off, and he is gone. It sweeps him out of his place. It hurls itself against him without mercy. As he flees headlong from its power, it claps its hand in derision and hisses him out of his place. Chapter 28. There is a mine for silver, and a place where gold is refined. Iron is taken from the earth, and copper is smelted from ore. Man puts an end to the darkness. He searches the farthest recesses, for ore is in the blackest darkness. Far from where people dwell he cuts a shaft, in places forgotten by the foot of man. Far from men he dangles and sways. The earth from which food comes is transformed below as by fire. Sapphires come from its rocks, and its dust contains nuggets of gold. No bird of prey knows that hidden place. No falcon's eye has seen it. Proud beasts do not set foot on it, and no lion prowls there. Man's hand assaults the flinty rock and lays bare the roots of the mountain. He tunnels through the rock. His eyes see all its treasures. He searches the sources of rivers and brings hidden things to light. But where can wisdom be found? Where does understanding dwell? Man does not comprehend its worth. It cannot be found in the land of the living. The deep says it is not in me. The sea says it's not with me. It cannot be bought with the finest gold, nor can its price be weighed in silver. It cannot be bought with the gold of Ophir, with precious onyx or sapphires. Neither gold nor crystal can compare with it, nor can it be had for jewels of gold. Coral and jasper are not worthy of mention. The price of wisdom is beyond rubies. The topaz of Cush cannot compare with it. It cannot be bought with pure gold. Where then does wisdom come from? Where does understanding dwell? Is it hidden from the eyes of every living thing, concealed even from the birds of the air? Destruction and death say, only a rumor of it has reached our ear. God understands the way to it, and he alone knows where it dwells. For he views the ends of the earth, and he sees everything under the heavens. When he established the forces of the wind, and measured out the waters, when he made a decree for the rain and a path for the thunderstorm, then he looked at wisdom and appraised it. He confirmed it and tested it. And he said to man, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to shun evil is understanding. Our last reading comes from Proverbs 3:25-27. Have no fear of sudden disaster, or of the ruin that overtakes the wicked, for the Lord will be your confidence, and will keep your foot from being snared. Do not withhold good from those who deserve it, when it is in your power to act. How true is that? Yes, we should not fear the disaster, because in the end, as Jesus says, what more to fear those who can kill the body and not the soul, or the one who can plunge both your body and soul into hell? He's talking about God. God is the one who ultimately has governance over our souls, and that's what's most important. And so we don't fear destruction, because when we're in God, there is no ultimate destruction. There's ultimate hope. We also read in Job. Man, these words of Job are incredible. He really goes into much depth about this, going through what do we do as humans in comparison to what God does. I mean, we can do so much more, he says, than animals, in the sense that we can mine all the different precious jewels of the earth. We can have all that at our disposal, and yet the thing that's worth the most we have no access to on our own. And he's talking about wisdom, and he talks about, gold and silver and all these things cannot compare, and even hell itself, it says, just has whispers searching for such sources of treasure as wisdom. And it keeps asking this question: where then does wisdom come from? Where does our understanding dwell? And the answer is found in verses 28 at the very end. It says, "And he said to man, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to shun evil is understanding." That's the key to finding wisdom, the greatest treasure of all. And we hear about other treasure, the treasure that they take to buy Joseph. We see in Genesis, he is bought for 20 shekels of silver. Who else is bought with 20 shekels of silver? I'll let you think about that one. Anyways, but here's a story of Joseph. Oh, Joseph. He doesn't help himself out. Not only is he the most favored child, and he doesn't have any qualms with being the most favorite child of his father's, but on top of that, he tells them these dreams that, whether true or prophetic, which they are prophetic, they will speak of to come, but I always wonder, why tell that to your brothers, especially to ones that may become jealous of you for that? Not the smartest thing. It's one thing to tell his father, because it seems like his father understands what prophecies are all about. Because remember, it says in verses 11, it says, his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So his father was discerning. Now, this is what happens, the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Jacob understands what it means to have dreams and how to wrestle with those with God, because he has wrestled. That's why his name is Israel. But we hear the story of Joseph, and then the events of his brothers wanting to kill him, the compassion that Reuben shows on him, and he doesn't let him die. And then we see him getting sold to the Midianites, or we also know them as Ishmaelites. Remember, Ishmael was the son of Abraham that we heard about in the very beginning of Genesis, the very beginning of the patriarchs we heard about. And so this is his adventure, and we'll hear about more adventures of Joseph to come. But as we go on our adventure, I just pray that I just thank you for coming along with this adventure in Bible in a Year, and I'm blessed to have you watch this. May you be a blessing to others. Pray for me, and I'll pray for you as we go through this, that you might search out not just treasures on this earth, but those things of wisdom that only we can receive from God. Thanks be to God. Have a beautiful day. Bye.